I never imagined that the 6'1", cold, aloof boyfriend who blushed just holding hands had a hidden reason for secretly returning to China without telling me. It was to wear a collar and kneel at the feet of a man in his 50s, an older guy in a leopard print camisole, acting coy and calling him mother. I've got an illness, a chronic disease that many young girls have. It's called mother obsession. I always thought, as long as I poured enough love into him, as long as I endured his cold treatment and neurotic torment, I could pull a broken-souled, one-of-a-kind heartthrob back to the real world. Until Shen Yan personally tore off his clean, gentle mask, pulling me skin and bones into a foul-smelling abyss. 3 years ago, we met at a student gathering in London. The place was filled with smoke and chaos. Cheap perfume and alcohol mixed in the air. Guys and girls acting like animals in heat. Shen Yan, tall at 6'1", wearing a crisp white shirt, sat quietly in the corner. He didn't flirt with others. Even when I got sick from drinking, he just politely handed me warm water and respectfully took me home, without even touching my finger. In that group that was a total mess like a junkyard, he was pure to the point of being a miracle. But it was this very miracle that half a month later at 2 a.m. shattered my world with his tears. On the phone, he was gasping like a dying cub, drunkenly breaking down and telling me that in middle school he was fostered at his homeroom teacher's house. How that female teacher, deep into the night countless times, forced a barely developed teenage boy. He cried and shook all over. I closed my eyes. It was that suffocating feeling of being pinned down. Please, just stay with me, okay? I'm so scared to be alone. At that moment, my maternal and protective instincts burst like a flooded river. I looked at his dirty clothes all over the floor, the room full of food containers, nowhere to step, watched him sitting in a dark corner, like a fragile glass doll. I naively thought he was a victim abandoned by the world, and I was the only one who could save him. In the 6 months I was with him, I lived every day in constant emotional exhaustion. Between us, it was like a roller coaster that could derail at any second. He constantly dragged me between heaven and hell. When things were good, he treated me like a princess, would help me study and cook for me. On snowy London streets, he'd slip my hands into his coat pockets, look at me with those deep, melting eyes,
and say,
"Meeting you is the only luck I've ever had in this life." But once that mood passed, he'd suddenly turn into a tyrant without warning. The soup I spent 3 hours making for him, he'd pour straight down the drain, just because one thing upset him. He'd suddenly go 2 days without replying, locking himself in his room. No matter how much I cried and pleaded outside the door, how hard I banged on it, he'd stay completely silent as if he were dead. After I was completely worn out and desperate, ready to leave with my suitcase, he would suddenly swing the door open, grab me from behind in a desperate hug, crying even harder than I was, his tears soaking into my neck. I'm sorry, I'm having another episode. I can't control myself. Don't go. If you leave, I'll have nothing left. What could I do? I looked into his red eyes, my heart melting with pity. I swallowed all my bitterness and hugged him like a saint. I took care of everything for him, became his nanny, his emotional trash can, his therapist. I was picking out candy from broken glass, brainwashing myself every day. He was just sick. Deep down, he loved me. Until he went back to China with me for my driver's test. One night, he said he was going to the internet cafe with some brothers to play games. It wasn't long before
his buddy came back for his ID.
I didn't think much of it. Figured you needed an ID to surf online anyway. A few days later, we returned to London. That day, he got hammered in his roommate's room, tossed right out. But his phone on the nightstand started vibrating like crazy. I never checked his phone before, but that buzzing sounded like a death knell. Something made me unlock it on impulse. That account was the one he always claimed. He only used to talk to his parents. With shaking hands, I entered his password and opened the account. All it took was one glance, and I felt the blood drain from my body, my ears ringing. There were no parents there, just endless chats with all sorts of people, chat logs. One chat was near the top. The other person's avatar was a middle-aged man, in heavy, cheap makeup, wearing a wig. Looking closer at the broad neck and bony jawline, I saw that this was no woman. It was a man in his 50s, dressed in a leopard print dress. A crossdresser. The chat logs showed that the night he claimed to be gaming at the internet cafe, he had taken selfies. Photos of Shen Yang kneeling on the hotel carpet, head tilted up, with a black leather collar around his neck. In his voice messages, his tone was sickeningly flattering and coquettish, nothing I'd ever heard, with a disturbing kind of obsession. Mother, I'm almost there. I'm your good little baby. How are you going to punish me tonight? Mother, can you hit me harder, please? I miss you so much. As long as you let me call you Mother, I'll eat anything you want me to. I covered my mouth tightly, stumbled and crawled into the bathroom, and threw up violently into the toilet. Tears and snot streaming as I puked, throwing up until my stomach cramped, and there was just bitter, yellow bile left. An overwhelming wave of nausea and humiliation gripped my neck like a giant hand. My neck. The lips I kissed every day were behind my back, calling a man in his 50s mother. I felt sorry for his childhood trauma, but he was reliving the thrill of being humiliated, tortured, and trampled on. Pale-faced, I kept scrolling down and found the group chat with his buddies. A buddy asked him about that old woman. Did it feel good when she hit you tonight? Shenran replied, it felt fucking amazing. My face got slapped so swollen, even better than getting high. Another buddy asked, what about your virtuous, wifey girlfriend? Didn't you say she was boring? At midnight, he sent a voice message, even laughing in the background at how boring I was, pretending to be all pure and playing house with him, playing the devoted boyfriend role. I'm fucking exhausted. If she wasn't so gullible, washing my clothes and cooking for me for free, and giving me emotional value, I would have dumped her long ago. My world blew apart. The lighthouse of redemption in my heart was blown to pieces by those words. All the nights I endured, all the tears I shed, all the cold abuse I suffered, in his eyes, were nothing but a ridiculous free game of playing house. He never needed my light. He was just a pile of rotten sludge fermenting in a foul gutter. That night, deep into the night, I don't even know how I managed to walk out of that house. The next day, I sent a message to break up with him and blocked him on everything. I went to see my friend Lin Jia, who set us up in the first place. My eyes were red with tears. My body was shaking as I asked her, did you know what kind of person he is? Did you know he had those disgusting fetishes? Lin Jia sat in the coffee shop, stirring the latte in her cup. Her eyes looked at me with such contempt it scared me. Yeah, I knew. So what? He's good looking, and his family is rich. There are so many girls lining up to play with him, they'd reach all the way to France. I just thought you seemed too bored most of the time, so I introduced this winner to you. You're just no fun. Why are you pretending to be all pure now? In that instant, I felt like my whole world collapsed. So in their so-called upper-class circles, values could be bought with looks and money. My sincerity was worth less than trash in their eyes. The last time I saw him was when I went to his place to pick up some important papers I left behind. It was a gloomy afternoon. The door was ajar. Thick blackout curtains were drawn inside the room, and it was as dim as a tomb. The air was filled with a nauseating, sour stench. All because someone was crouched in the corner of the living room, on the carpet, surrounded by all sorts of shocking props. A broken whip, a few torn leopard print dresses, even a dog bowl with a chain attached, and empty liquor bottles all over the floor. He was just sitting there in that mess, his hair disheveled, reeking of alcohol. When he heard my footsteps, he slowly looked up, but he didn't call my name. Instead, he gave a weird little grin, stared straight at me, and, in a shrill voice, muttered something that sounded like a woman. Are you here to whip me too? Come on, whip me harder. Right then, a wave of fear like ice water poured over me from head to toe. He had lost his mind, his spirit had completely broken down, leaving behind nothing but an empty shell desperate for pain. I didn't even bother taking the papers. I just ran out the door like I'd lost my mind and dashed into the pouring London rain. I ran as fast as I could, rain and tears streaming down my face. I swore to myself, I'll never set foot in that world again for the rest of my life. It's been 3 years since all of that happened. Even as I write these words, my hands are still cold. I just want to use my lesson to wake up those girls obsessed with saving guys like him, especially the ones who are drawn to broken but handsome men. Never feel sorry for a man. And if you see him begging for help from the abyss, don't play the saint and reach out your hand. Just run, don't look back. Keep running, because you'll never know what's really hidden at the bottom of that dark swamp. Is it a soul waiting to be saved? Or a monster waiting to drag you to hell with him and devour you alive?